Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half German on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, albeit the Swedish brewery quite a bit more frequently, and I've had good beers from both of these breweries. So I have to say, I'm very curious to see what happens when you put them together. So yeah, for the home side of things then, like I say, we're sticking to Sweden. We're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing the Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition. And for this review, we are going to return once again to Duckpond Brewing. So the beer we're having a look at today is called Fruit Slayer. It comes in at 6% ABV, and they're describing this one as a Berliner Weisse with blackcurrant, raspberry and passionfruit added into the brew. But it's brewed in collaboration with Frau Gruber, who come from Gundelfinger and der Donau in Bavaria, down in southern Germany, and you know, they are a very good brewery in my experience as well. But yeah, Duckpond of course are known for their New England hazy IPAs and also the big fruity juicy sours, the Berliner Weisses, the Goses and things like this. Frau Gruber, I would say, are known throughout Europe mainly for their kind of hazy New England IPAs that they do. They're a very solid brewery in that category, but they have done a few beers like this as well actually. So yeah, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. This beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget for May of 2021. So yeah, I thought this one sounded really interesting. I was quite excited when I saw it was a collaboration with Frau Gruber as well, and I haven't featured them on the channel for quite a wee while actually. We don't get too many of their beers here in Sweden at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, a very good brewery in my experience, and this is maybe their 4th or 5th time featuring here on the channel. But I've had a good few beers from Duckpond Brewing. They're one of the Swedish breweries that I always keep an eye out for in the local releases. But yeah, certainly looking forward to trying this one, as I said, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Duckpond Brewing and from Frau Gruber. We will no doubt add more to both of those lists at some point in the near future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the German beers. The Swedish one is added to pretty much all the time, whereas the German one is added to whenever I get the opportunity. Not as often as I would like, right enough, but as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Duckpond Brewing first off then, since these guys are the home brewery. So Duckpond Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based up in Gothenburg, Göteborg. And the brewery were previously known as Mikrofonbryggeriet, or the Microphone Brewery, if you want to translate it to English. And this company is the brainchild of Nicholas Arcevich, who is a singer-songwriter for the band Millencolin, who have been making music since 1993. But the band was originally based in Örebro, and then they took a break, and Nikola moved over to Gothenburg. But in 2013, he began homebrewing with his friend Christian Silva while he was studying international marketing in Skövde. But the two were brewing very small 20-litre batches together, and then Nikola went down to Berlin in Germany for a 2-week brewing course, and after this the two of them started the company officially, and it was based for a while in Nikola's house, and at this point it was brewing 200-litre batches. So they changed the name from Mikrofonbryggeriet in the summer of 2019, mainly because they felt that an English name was better for kind of international purposes and exporting beer a little bit later on, and ever since then they've been working to increase their output and increase the international sales. But in 2019 they managed to produce around 70,000 litres, and these guys are also co-owners of the Wizard Brewing brand along with Morgendagens, who are another very good brewery based in the Gothenburg area, who also do some lovely big sour beers actually. But originally Before they got their own premises, they were brewing a lot of their beer at Popel's Brewery and at Odd Island, but these days they've got their own premises in the Kungston area of Gothenburg, and they've just hired Magnus Lorraine as their new brewer within the last few months. But as of May 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 35 different kinds of beer under the Duckpond name, and prior to that there was about 20 or so had been released as under the Microphone Brigarian name as well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Duckpond Brewing for the moment. In my opinion, these guys are one of the Swedish breweries to keep an eye on at the moment, especially if you're into the big fruity juicy sour beers, the Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like this, and they also do a very, very good New England hazy IPA as well, and you will see me review one of those a little bit later in the month as well. There's a very good one I know was released this month too, which I picked up. So keep your eyes peeled for that review. But yeah, Duckpond Brewing are one of the Swedish brewers that I would highly recommend at the moment. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about them for the moment. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on to the away side of things then. Let's go down to Germany for this one. So, Frau Gruber Brewing was founded by Matthias Gruber and Enzo Frauenschuh. And these guys were skate park friends from Augsburg, which is in the kind of southwestern part of Bavaria in southern Germany. But Matthias previously worked for a company that manufactured printing presses, and he went to Australia to work for a few months. And while there, Enzo visited him, and they went to drink craft beer because Enzo was studying at Weihenstephan, which is a very famous German brewing school. Of course, you might have heard of the brewery, the oldest operating brewery in the world, apparently. So yeah, there's a bit of a debate about that between Weihenstephan and Weltenburg, of course. So yeah, but we won't get into that. But he had been the brewmaster at Riegele Brauhaus for about 5 years as well at this point, which was pretty cool. And Australia does have a thriving craft beer industry as well, which you should definitely check out if you get the chance. But anyway, in 2013 they founded a craft beer wholesale business together, which was called Liquid Hops, and this focused initially on importing Belgian and American beers into Germany. And this was initially a part-time venture, but then the demand for craft beers grew hugely, and so Matthias made craft beer his profession. So the pair soon started home brewing together, and they sold their beers at the market, where they proved to be hugely popular. So they decided to combine their names and then chose Frau Gruber as the name of this brewery, and then they agreed with Markus Lohner to brew their beers at the old Kamba brewery. But this brewery can be found in Gundelfinger and the Donau, which is kind of in the sort of mid-western part, I guess you could say, of Bavaria in southern Germany. But they actually took over the ownership of this facility completely in January of 2020, and they've continued to brew there ever since. So in the years between, of course, they grew their reputation. They started exporting their beers a little bit more, and they've gone from strength to strength. But over the years, as I say, they've continued to expand their capacity, and as of May 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 100 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Frau Gruber Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, this is a brewery that I do want to get a few more beers from at some point in the future, because I think it's been about a year or so since I last did a dedicated review to Frau Gruber. So I need to see if I can get a hold of some of their IPAs and things from Copenhagen or whatever the next time I go over there. But yeah, I would love to get a few more beers from Frau Gruber, in fact. But they're mainly known for their New England hazy IPAs, but they do a few other styles. I've seen a couple of Berliner Weisses and Goses and things from them, and I think they do some. I think I've seen a couple of stouts and maybe a few West Coast IPAs from them too. But a brewery that you definitely want to check out. There's some really exciting things going on in the German beer scene these days, particularly with the likes of Sudden Death, Hamburg's Braukunstkeller, Frau Gruber. You've got a lot of breweries now trying to brew different styles from the original German ones. A lot of the German breweries are turning their attention to brewing styles that are either not specific to their region or not specific to the country. So very interesting times for the beer scene in Germany ahead. And of course, you've got a bunch of wonderful traditional beers down there too. So yeah, I do miss living in Germany, I have to say. I used to live in Heidelberg in Baden-Württemberg, which isn't too far away from where these guys are based actually. So yeah, go have a go at some of the German beers beers. There's a great culture there, as many of you I'm sure will know. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one, as you can see, it is quite inventive, should we say. I do like the little kind of pastry ghosty guy on this one, but yeah, I like this. As I say, a 6% Berliner Weisse with blackcurrant, raspberry and passion fruit. There you can see in the middle of them, there are the Duckpond brewing symbols and the Frau Gruber ones, and you can see that is on the back of the can as well. But yeah, a 440ml can, this one. I think I paid 50 Swedish kroner for this, which is roughly about €5. That translates to roughly, you know, £4.25, £4.50 sterling, something like that, and probably somewhere in the region of $6 American, just to give those of you watching in different places a bit of a price reference for this beer. But always nice to have some new beers from Duckpond. I love the sour beers that these guys do, and definitely cool to have Frau Gruber on the channel once again. But yeah, this one contains barley, wheat and oats in the malt base, so I think it should be very nice actually. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this one has in store for us. As you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I do love a good berry sour beer, so this should be very nice, and it certainly looks the part of one of these big modern sweet sour beers too. So yeah, let's just line up the can again and we can sit it there. I think I've got about, yeah, maybe about 3/4 of the beer in the glass. So before the head disappears, you can see that this beer is poured with a lovely pink, I'd say that's a lovely kind of bright candy pink coloured head. There's a solid finger of that there, and I think that will just gradually fade away to be nothing over the next little while. But yeah, in terms of the colour of this one, it's a lovely big, I'd say that that's a kind of burgundy colour. Reminds me of the Heart of Midlothian football shirt from Scotland, of course. Those of you that are into your football will know that, but a lovely kind of burgundy maroon type colour, this one. Almost like a red wine colour actually. Heritage Cherry Gibson SG, that's another thing that it reminds me of. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass with this one, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and this beer as well is very, very hazy. So remember, when it comes to the colour of these beers, that depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil, and usually in the case of sour beers it depends on barrel aging, but mainly on the adjuncts and things like that you use. So this beer will be getting a lot of its colour from the raspberries and the blackberries. Stuff in this one, I just want to check. It's blackcurrant, sorry. I always mix this up. I always mix up blackberries and blackcurrants. Berries, of course, tend to be a little bit sharper and juicier. Currants tend to be, you know, sort of soft, if you like. They've got a slightly kind of softer flavour to them. But yeah, most of the colour in this beer will, of course, be coming from a mix of the raspberries and the blackcurrants, I would say. It looks like a drink called Ribena that my gran always used to give me when I was young. I don't know if that's a good reference for Swedes or Germans right enough, but if there's Scottish people watching, you will know exactly what Ribena is. But yeah, you can see the head on this one has just faded away to be a lovely kind of thin foamy layer, but you've got a nice kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass there. But in terms of colour, it's certainly not out with the realms of possibility for what you would expect of a kind of modern fruity Berliner Weisse or Gose. Of course, these beers are always coloured by the adjuncts, but normally your beer, it depends on the, as I say, the type of malt, which determines the magnitude of the colour, and then the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But the level of haze in these kind of big fruity juicy sours as well is dependent on the oat and wheat ratio, but the yeast will also play a role and things like that as well. But yeah, a lovely looking Berliner Weisse, this one, I would have to say. But yeah, certainly looks the part of this beer. Not much more to say on the appearance of this one. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on actually. Very curious about this beer. Yeah, it smells really nice. So as I've said to you in previous reviews, when it comes to these, you know, big, juicy, fruity Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like that, I find the aromas remarkably straight shooting, but they are just absolutely lovely. I love these big, juicy, fruity beers. You often get a little bit of a kind of yogurty base to them, then just some lovely juicy fruity notes and then a bit of sharpness. The other thing to note about this beer is that it doesn't contain hops, and this is a thing that seems to be quite popular here in Sweden. There are a few sour beer breweries back home in Scotland that put hops in their beer, and it gives the beer a little bit more complexity, but a lot of the sour beer breweries in here in Sweden do not do it, which is interesting. But yeah, traditionally speaking, I think with these kind of beers, you would put old hops in them so that the hoppy bitterness didn't kind of overpower the sourness to the beer. But these days, a lot of these modern sours tend to be just very juicy and creamy and sweet and things, and that's what you're going to get out of this one, obviously. But the aroma of this beer is absolutely lovely. So to try and break this down for you a little bit then, when you first smell it, you're going to get a good bit of kind of sharpness and tartness. You're going to get a good little bit of sharpness and tartness from the fruity side of things. So yeah, you've got a lovely, you can get a good little bit of tartness, which will mainly come from the raspberry in this one. Blackcurrants for me are not overly tart, they are more juicy. Passionfruit, of course, tends to give you a very kind of sort of smooth and juicy type aroma. So I think most of the tartness you're getting out of this beer will come from the raspberries. But sitting underneath the fruit, of course, you've got that lovely big sort of yogurty, petit filou type thing going on here. It does just smell, this beer just really smells like a kind of fruit yogurt, to be quite honest with you. So you can smell the sort of creaminess coming out of the oats. You do get a little touch of bitiness from the wheat at the very back of the nose, but yeah, the malty backbone of this beer is very smooth and very creamy, like a big yogurt actually. There's a little bit of a you do get a little tiny touch of like a Werther's Original butterscotchy kind of butter candy type thing in this one, but that's quite a common thing to find in beers like this, because there is barley malt in here, of course, so you can get varying flavours from the barley malts in these beers. But overall, the malty base of this one is big and creamy, and that's the oats mainly. Gives you a little bit of bitiness from the wheat. There is a wee bit of breadiness in there as well, which will be the barley malt side of things, but as I say, just a little touch of sweetness as well. So yeah, the malty backbone of this beer goes together very, very nicely actually. So yeah, I really like how this one I really like how this beer goes about its business, in fact, on the malty side of things. Even though this one doesn't have hops in it, you do get a little bit of that kind of placebo effect that I've often talked about with these beers before. There's a wee touch of earthiness comes out of this one for me, but that's quite minimal. But you do get mainly a kind of grassy placebo note out of this one. And I always find that when you've got, you know, fruits in the beer like raspberries, these kind of bramble fruits, if you like, the berries, you always get a little bit of a kind of grassiness off of those, I think. So there is a wee bit of a kind of green placebo effect going on here, a little bit of grassiness coming out of this beer. I would definitely say that about it. But yeah, the aroma of this one is absolutely lovely on the malty and the green side of things, if you like. But on the fruity side of things then, just to round off the aroma, like I say, you get a lovely sharpness and tartness from the raspberries in this one, but they've also got a lovely kind of juicy character to them as well because of the sort of creamy oaty side of the beer. But you can definitely smell a little bit of the pungency from the passion fruit as well, but it really smoothens out the kind of the passion fruit really smoothens out some of the other parts of the beer too. You can sort of smell that the passion fruit and the black currants are kind of mixing together and giving you a very soft and juicy fruity undertone to the beer. So the fruit that kind of takes that sort of gives you the tartness and the power behind the beer, I would say, is the raspberry, but it's the passion fruit and the black currants that are giving you the depth. And of course you do get a few sort of undertones in the beer, like, you know, figs, and you know, you get a little bit of a figgy note to this one, a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry and things like this. You always get these type of undertones in these big fruity juicy sour beers like this one. But the aroma is absolutely beautiful. As I say, you know, I find these ones very straight shooting, but they always turn out very, very nicely. So yeah, take a bit of time and ponder over the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we try this one. So yeah, this one is the Fruit Slayer, a 6% Berliner Weisse from Duckpond Brewing in Gothenburg and Frau Gruber Brewing in Gundelfinger and the Donau down in Bavaria. 6% Berliner Weisse with blackcurrant, raspberry and passion fruit added into it. I think this is going to be awesome, so let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers and prost. Ooh, that beer's got a wee bit of kick to it on the beginning, but I think it's been a wee while since I've actually had one of these Berliner Weisses, but might just be the raspberries. The raspberries in this are pretty powerful, we'll say that. Yeah, it's if you've had some of these beers from Duckpond Brewing before, let's just say it's the same standard. It's what we've had, but I do find this one just a little touch more tart than some of the other ones we've had before. And I do wonder, this could be one of the things, you know, Frau Gruber being a German brewery, they will know what a traditional Berliner Weisse is going to be like. And what I would say about this one, and I'm just checking, there's not really sediment on the can in this beer, because that's another thing. Quite often with these you can get a little bit of sediment. There's only a tiny wee bit in this one. But what you can often find with these kinds of beers is that the German breweries, I think, tend to brew them not quite as thick and not quite as creamy. The Germans tend to stick a little bit more to the original kind of mouthfeel, which is, of course, you know, a kind of more pure, light and sweet, not pure, light and kind of smooth wheat, if you like. That's what I was meaning to say. So this beer doesn't feel quite as thick as some of the other Duckpond ones that I've had before. The other thought that's going round in my head is that I've now had quite a few of these big kind of juicy fruity sour beers, so I'm kind of used to them a little bit more. So maybe I don't find these beers as thick as I used to, but yeah, this one to me has a little bit more of a kind of German Berliner Weisse type smoothness to it, if that makes sense. I would say that about this beer, but in terms of its quality, it is up there with what you would normally expect from Duckpond Brewing within the big fruity juicy sour category. I can't speak for Frau Gruber in that sense, because I've not had a sour beer from them as far as I remember. But knowing their New England IPAs, I'm pretty sure their sour beers will be pretty damn good as well. But overall, this beer, as I say, it does get a thumbs up from me. Definitely a little bit more kind of tart and potent, I think, than some of the other ones I've had from Duckpond as well. But I'm sure it will mellow out as we kind of go through it a little bit more. So yeah, very, very nice beer, this one. For me, as I've explained in other reviews, the thing that makes a good sour beer is the transition from being really sharp and tart in the beginning to just juicing out and sort of mellowing out, and you often get really good, you get some really good stuff from Duckpond in this. I love that. You know, I really got into sour beers properly on the back of a few lambic beers that were sent to me, and also the Rodenbach. It was Rodenbach that really got me into the sour beers a little bit more as well. But yeah, this is very nice. So let's try and break down the flavour of this beer for you a little bit more. The other thing I would say as well is there's nothing unexpected about this beer in terms of what it gives you, but it's just very nicely crafted, which we would expect from both of these breweries. So yeah, straight away with this beer then, you can feel that nice, smooth, white bready backbone to this one. So in the middle third of your palate, I think most of that is coming from the sort of barley malt backbone, and I think the wheat, there is a layer of wheat there. So I think this beer, you've basically got the smooth, kind of soft white bread from the barley malt, you can feel the wheat coming in on top of that, and then you can feel the slightly thicker, creamier oats coming out of this one. This beer doesn't have lactose or anything in it, incidentally, and some of the Duckpond beers will give you that. I think this one, the malty character in this beer does strike me as being a little bit more traditional, almost by comparison, but the oats would be the counter to that argument, of course. But yeah, this beer really has, the malty side of this beer is very straight shooting in a sense. You can feel sitting on top of the kind of smoother wheaty layer though, you get that sort of circle of kind of oaty qualities, and that does thicken out the beer a little bit, and perhaps just sitting in the very middle of your palate, you will get a little hint of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy thing, and that is the alcohol component of the beer. You maybe get a little hint, you know, towards the front of that middle third of your palate, you might get one or two tiny little woody notes or a little bit of a vanilla or something like that. But the malt base in this beer is very, very straight shooting actually. So yeah, barley malt base, the smooth wheaty notes on top of it, then the more kind of creamy oaty qualities as well. So yeah, I really like how all of that goes together, absolutely. Yeah, it goes it works very, very nicely. I think this beer really does smoothen out, and it sort of sweetens up a little bit. The malty character in this beer really sweetens up the further you go into it, and you do get the impression from the oats. You start to get, as you progress into the aftertaste with this beer, you get a little bit more of that kind of yogurty type sweetness, that petit filou type yogurty sweetness coming out of it too. So yeah, it's a really interesting how that malty base progresses, but there's not much more to say about that middle third of the palate, to be honest with you. So let's move on to the back third of your palate then. In the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a little bit more of a kind of bready build up. Then the base of that back third of your palate, you get a nice kind of smooth, you can feel the sort of wheaty notes there, and you do at the very back of the tongue, you get a little bit of bitiness off the wheat, but yeah, it builds up, you get a little bit of smoothness there, and then sitting on top of that, you get the more kind of yeasty elements out of the beer. So you can feel that more airy, yeasty character just sitting on top of the the kind of wheaty backbone to the beer. So when you start at the back of the palate, you can feel that the sort of height of the beer, the height of the flavour is kind of like this, and it condenses down as you go further forward then into the middle third of your palate. It still stays quite thick, but yeah, you can feel that it does condense down as you move further forward, and that is your malty side of the beer. So yeah, nice bit of bready component to this one, a little bit more than other Duckponds we've had before, but you get that typical kind of yogurty element out of the beer that you would expect from a kind of modern sour. On the green side of things, and as I say, no hops in this beer, but you still get a little bit of placebo effect. You do get a little touch of earthiness, I think, in the back corners of the palate, and as you move further forward, it stays quite smooth, not a lot going on, but for me, there's a little tiny floral note on the front corners of the palate, and round the front curve of the tongue, you do get just a little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness to this, and I find it strange that you get these flavours when there's no hops in the beer, but I still get a little bit of that kind of placebo. But then we should focus on the fruity side of the beer now. So again, fruity side of the beer really comes out on the front third of your palate, border region between front third and middle third. You get a little bit more, you get a little bit more of a kind of bready build up again. There's a wee touch of there is a little touch of a kind of bread crusty element to the beer. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a smooth, wheaty, white bready element as well. So I can really, again, appreciate how that goes together. But yeah, that's really nice. But the fruity adjuncty notes that you get out of this beer are sitting on top of that, and they really come out on that front third of your palate. And as I always say, when you add fruit into beer as an adjunct, some of it always comes out around the kind of front edges of the palate, and usually that suppresses a little bit of the hoppy character in the beer. But you don't have hops in this one, so different story. But yeah, it's interesting because if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel the passion fruit there. You do get a wee bit towards the back of that front third of your palate. You get a little bit of the pungency of the passion fruit, and it's very, very smooth kind of going forward, and you start to get the blackcurrant elements going forward on the beer as well. You can feel that the passion fruit sits there and sort of thickens up the fruity side of the beer, and as you move further forward towards the tip of the tongue, there's a little bit of a kind of just smooth blackcurrant element out of this one, and sitting on top of that you get the big juicy sharp raspberry notes. So the raspberry comes in just right behind the tip of the tongue, and the sort of juicy tartness just pushes towards the back of the palate as well, but then round the front kind of curve of the palate you get more of that raspberry there. So yeah, the raspberry is definitely the most pungent fruit in this one for sure, but as I was picking up in the aroma, the passion fruit and the blackcurrants really add a bit of depth to this one. But it's a lovely beer, this one, once again from Duckpond, and I wouldn't expect anything less. So big thumbs up to them for this. There's not much more to say on the flavour of this, and as I said, these beers are remarkably straight shooting, but they're just very well crafted actually. So let's round off the review with the mouthfeel then. So this beer for me, I'd say it's sort of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It's got a lovely big smooth mouthfeel to it. There's a good bit of creaminess to this one, and I would say this beer, in fairness, it does thicken up a little bit the more that you drink of it, but I would say that it feels a little bit lighter and perhaps a bit smoother than some of the other examples in this style bracket that we've had from Duckpond in the past. I do wonder if that is the German influence of Frau Gruber, of course, because, you know, maybe a little bit more of a traditional approach, a slightly more traditional approach to these kinds of beer than Duckpond Brewing might take, of course. But yeah, you get a lot with this beer. It really leans towards that white bready, wheaty base a little bit more, and I think that's a nice touch with this beer. But smoothness from the oats definitely, and a wee bit of sweetness. There's very little IBU to this beer. I mean, technically speaking, it's probably 0 IBU, but I think in reality you're going to get, you know, about 5 IBUs or something out of it. It's very difficult to eliminate IBUs completely. And on the fruity side of things, a good bit of tartness to this one. I find the tartness in this beer a little bit more potent compared to other ones, but a lovely little juicy component in there as well. You get a bit of pungency from the tropical fruit, but you know, the passion fruit and the the passion fruit and the, how would you say, the blackcurrant really kind of smoothing each other out and just add a bit of depth to the beer, whereas the raspberry is the thing that gives it the sourness and potency and stuff. But yeah, a very, very nice beer. I've enjoyed reviewing this one for you, and I think we can round off the review there. So yeah, this one is the Fruit Slayer, 6% Berliner Weisse with raspberries, passion fruit and blackcurrant from Duckpond Brewing in Kungsten in Gothenburg, brewed in collaboration with Frau Gruber from Gundelfinger and the Donau in Bavaria, down in the south of Germany in Bayern. So yeah, lovely beer this, and I'm glad I got the chance to review it here on the channel. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Duckpond and from Frau Gruber. We will return to Duckpond again later this month, and I do hope that we can get a few more Frau Gruber beers on the channel at some point soon. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out these breweries, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, make sure you check out this beer, and I'll see you on the next review. Prost.